Greetings. This is TK Trav, aka Travis Magus, here with LVX777. How do you know? How do you know that you actually know what you know? And this isn't really meant to be some kind of weird, mind-boggling trick question, but let's be practical and serious. We're talking about the occult. We're talking about magic and mysticism and any other spiritual practice. How do you know that you actually know what you're talking about? And this isn't an attempt to make fun of anybody or make anyone sound stupid, but this is an attempt to get you thinking about yourself. Because if this is a subject matter that you really want to understand and you really want to know, it will serve you best to understand where you are and where you want to go. To be specific, I get a lot of questions about things like the Kabbalah. Now, we find that a lot of people understand the terminology, or I should say understand the words and the labels used, right? A lot of people understand that the top of the tree is called Kether, which means crown. The bottom of the tree is called Magus, which means kingdom. Now, some people understand that there are planets associated with the trees. So it's really easy to have the assumption that Makuth just means earth and Kether means heaven, right? But see, what we're doing here is we're simplifying something that's more complex than we know, right? It's not as simple as earth and heaven because there's a whole 8 other spheres in between. So what are those? Right? What are those? What I'm stating here is that science is a never-ending process of learning. And it doesn't serve you at all to stop and say, oh, I get it. I get it all. Oh, I understand it all. The minute you stop learning is the minute you get left behind. This is a living process. So the point of this video isn't just to say, hey, you probably don't know what you're talking about, because this applies to me as well. What I've learned these past couple of months in my study is that it's not even about the words. It's not even about the terminology. It's not even about the labels and knowing that this means that and this relates to this and this realm and that realm. It's not even about that. What it is about is the relationships, the connections. It's not about the Sephiroth, it's about the paths in between. It's about the system. It's about understanding the system. Because the system is a map. It's a framework. It's not a thing. It's not a thing actually. It's just a representation. It's a map, but it's not the territory. So it doesn't serve us to just take a piece of the tree, because what we're missing out on when we do that is that each piece of the tree only means anything in comparison to the rest of the tree. It's about the relationships. So everything spiritual, everything dealing with the subconscious mind is about the relationships. It's never the thing itself. It's always the relationships. This is why the principle of correspondence is one of the most important laws from the Kabbalah, one of the most important 7 Hermetic principles, the law of correspondence. Because it's with correspondence that we understand it's not necessarily the thing that has the meaning, it's the relationship to something else. It's that relationship in between those two things that defines it all. And this is how the subconscious mind speaks. This is the language of magic and spirituality. Understanding the hidden relationships between a thing. See, the conscious mind looks at the differences. The conscious mind looks at what's different. The conscious mind sees, okay, that person over there is a Democrat, that person's a Republican, I'm a Libertarian, we're all different. We're all different. Oh, these things aren't the same because I can see the differences. That's how the conscious mind thinks. And that innately causes so much suffering, as you can see. People fighting each other, killing each other, stealing from each other, hurting each other over illusionary differences. But But in truth, the subconscious mind sees the connecting relationships between all things. For example, you know that the root chakra is red. So we understand that when we work with things dealing with a red color, more than likely it's going to have some type of relationship with our root chakra, right? What does a ruby have to do with the root chakra? What does, red fruit and red clothes and red candles, like these are things that are not connected on the outside, but symbolically, because the subconscious mind speaks in symbols. Symbolically, we're talking about the same essence, right? We're talking about things that are related in the color red. Likewise with green and the heart chakra and all the different fruits and vegetables. And you see these little posts online that show like how when you open up certain fruits, they look like certain body parts or certain organs or veins, right? We talk about the correspondence. This is how nature and the universe and the subconscious mind actually communicates between the similarities. Because it's when we follow those similarities, that's how we're able to trace the external effect back to the source. That's why the system of Kabbalah is somewhat of a filing cabinet. Because in order to do practical work upon the tree of life, you've got to have those correspondences filled in. We define the Sephirah by the things they relate to in our life. If I were to ask you to define what is Binah, what does that represent? All you can do is start describing different things that relate to the energy of Binah. First, you're going to say, oh, Saturn. Then you're going to say the color black. Then you're going to say Isis. Then you're going to say, old systems and the judiciary system and the law and different things that when put together, we start to see the connections between them. This is what I mean. This is exactly what I mean. If you want to understand the occult, get away from the conscious mind analyzing the differences and start working with the subconscious mind and understanding the similarities between things. This is how magic works. It's not about what candle do I use. It's not about what stone do I charge under the moonlight. It's about the correspondences, what these things symbolically represent. It doesn't matter what system you follow. It doesn't matter what deity you choose to work with, what God, what angel, because in essence, there's only two. There's only two. There's divine masculine and divine feminine. That's it. It doesn't matter if you're Christian. It doesn't matter if you are a left-hand path occultist. There are only two energies that exist. Divine masculine and divine feminine. Or we can correspond that with consciousness and energy. Energy including matter and everything perceivable. The divine feminine is actually the face of the divine masculine, which is consciousness. Now, somewhere in between, we believe that we exist, human being. We're a combination of the two. Human being and everything else here has a body made of matter, but a soul, which is consciousness. And this whole journey is figuring that out. This whole journey is defining that. This whole journey is not just learning the words like kundalini and enlightenment and all the words that frequency, vibration, and all that. It's not about learning those words. It's about understanding what those words represent. It's about understanding the relationship that those words have with our experience. So my suggestion for today, to help you improve your spiritual research and your spiritual understanding, is to get away from all the differences and start learning about the connections, the networks. Start learning about how things relate to each other, because this is how you learn to communicate with your subconscious mind. It's not that the color holds power, but it's what that color symbolizes and how it relates to your personal experience and your external environment. When you begin to learn about these connections, now you're able to literally influence your life in ways that you wouldn't have believed before. You're able to move things and create opportunities for yourself simply by understanding the subtle relationships and the subtle connections between the symbolic representation of things and the thing itself. So learn how to connect what it is that you want with what it actually represents. Let me know if that makes sense in the comments, because if it doesn't, I'll be happy to give more symbolic representations of what that means. This is why in the Bible Jesus spoke in parables, because metaphors help you understand concepts through the relationships. So he could have just said XYZ, this is the law, and then people would have taken that and taken it at face value and corrupted it. I mean, how many times have you had a boss? I've had a boss where a certain aspect of the job could have been done easier, but because the rule book and the black and white says XYZ, they make the decision, oh, well, if you do it this way, you're going to get punished. Even though it would make more sense to do it differently, they want to follow by the book because they're so stuck on the external. But you, the employee, understood that, hey, maybe we could do this a little bit differently, at least just this time. That's the difference between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. The conscious mind is so stuck hard on the external appearance of a thing, but the subconscious mind understands the relationship. That's why everything we do spiritual is dealing with the subconscious mind. That's why things manifest. That's why there's synchronicities, right? That's why you get channeled messages, and that's why astrology works and all this other stuff, because it's symbolic and it's about the connection. And yeah, you'll see. There's so many easier ways to do things, but you got to get out of the habit of constantly searching for differences and start searching for connections, relationships. It's the relationships that define the thing, not the thing itself. Not the thing itself. It's always about the relationships. And you'll find that out more and more and more as we go along and break down this tree of life. But yeah, I figured that this would be a pretty good message. For those of you who wanted to understand a little bit more about the tree of life, this is inspired by a DM that I got, not too long ago. The young man was asking, how does he know if he's reached Kether and if he's come back, and how does he know? And he feels like he may have, but he just doesn't know for sure. And that's what I mean, what is Kether? What is Makuth? What does it mean to go back and forth? If you can't really define those, then how would you think that you've done it? It works so much better when you understand, first off, what the actual terms mean, but secondly, how they relate to each other and how it relates to your experience. When you're able to understand those things, now you don't have to ask those questions because you understand. Yeah, we've all been to Kether and back. That's the source. That's where we all come from. That's how we get to Malkuth, is from Kether. We've done it over and over and over and over, countless times, right? We don't know if this is the most recent time or if it hasn't been for millions of years. We don't know. And it also doesn't matter. All that matters is what we're doing with this time, right now. That's all that matters. It doesn't matter how many times you reincarnated or who you were in your past life. It matters a little bit if you know what to do with that information, but it doesn't really matter. What matters is what you're doing today with what you've got right now. And my suggestion is learn to understand the similarities as opposed to just the differences. When you learn to understand the similarities, you start seeing behind the veil of the illusion, because that's what the illusion is, thinking that everything is different and separate. That's the illusion. There's one source, and everything connects back to it. Doesn't matter what race you are, what color, what gender, what you call yourself, what you identify as, none of that matters. Because at the end of the day, we're all literally the same thing wrapped in a different outfit. So yeah, like this video if you want to see more, if you want to hear more, if you want to learn more, and leave a comment below about your experience so far. Alright, so I'm going to get back to my studies. This is TK Trav, aka Travis Magus, here with LVX777. I love you guys. Peace.